Broadcasting with our oral history microphone, and we've come to the Calvert City Convalescent Center. And today we're talking with J.C. Treas, who is, as some of you might recognize, a native of the Brewers area, or at least he lived there a long time. We'll find out more about that in just a minute. This is Ray Mofield. Mr. Treas, thanks for letting us come to your room. And were you born in the Brewers area?
Yes, sir. I was born there on Soldier Creek, right down in about 2.5 miles of Brewers.
Well, now, Soldier Creek is probably the oldest community in the whole Jackson Purchase.
Oldest church, they tell me.
The church, not only Primitive Baptist, but any kind.
Yeah.
First church ever.
Yeah.
And that, I believe, has a date of 1818.
I think that's right.
So that's always been real interesting to me, because this was Indian territory till October the 19th, 1818.
Yeah.
And that fall, I'm told, a Primitive Baptist preacher from Caldwell County by the name of Henry Clay Darnell.
I think I've heard that myself.
And I believe Mr. Darnell and his wife are buried
Yes, sir.
in that cemetery.
Yes, sir. That's right.
Now nobody can have been here earlier legally than that, because we didn't own it till the Chickasaw Indians owned it till the 19th day of October. That was an interesting trip to me, to go down to Mississippi where they signed that treaty, and the big tree under which they met, the commissioners were Andrew Jackson, who later became president, of course, and Isaac Shelby, who was a two-time governor of Kentucky. He had served as first governor in 1792, and then he was governor during the War of 1812 also, serving 2 terms. And those 2 commissioners met there for several days, finally gave the Indians $300,000 to move out of the Jackson Purchase area, which we now call it that. And it was the 8 counties that are west of the Tennessee River, south of the Ohio, and east of the Mississippi. Well, I don't want to do all the talking. I want you to talk. Now, who was your father, Mr. Treas?
Holly Treas.
Holly Treas.
Yeah.
And you were born when?
1913.
1913.
13, yes, sir.
And your mother?
Ola Treas.
Mm-hmm.
She was Cal Treas's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
They lived there on the farm where that cemetery and graveyard and church and all come off of.
So your mother and father had the same name.
That's right.
They were like, well, the Darnell family, for example. There's several different groups, and I've also run into several different Morgan families, and they'd one group would say, well, I'm not kin to that group at all.
Well, I've asked my mother and daddy how much kin they was. They said if there's any, they didn't know it. They said their people were different Treases some way.
Yeah.
And there's a Treas come to our house just before I come down here, and they spelt their name different, and she was trying to find out if we were related.
Mm-hmm.
So she finally decided maybe she wasn't, but she is from Murray.
Well, frequently, the pioneers, even in the same family, would spell the name different ways. Now, one time, back to the Darnells again, I met a fella whose name was spelled Darnell, and they called it Darnell, and that man's cousin spelled it Darnall and pronounced it Darnell.
Yeah.
So, you know, we did vary, and there's a lot of ways to spell Smith, I found out.
Well, that's what Treas is there. I reckon that he's the only one that I've heard of that come around to hunting for another besides Dad and Mother.
Now, my wife started teaching at Brewers, and one of her first students, as I remember, was a girl named June Treas. Was she related to you?
Well, she was my cousin's
Daughter.
daughter, yeah. Howard Treas's girl.
Mm-hmm. So that, and of course, anybody that grew up in Marshall County will remember Cliff Treas.
Well, my sister went to school to her, Anna Dale
Yes.
Treas.
And of course, he ran a lumber yard for a long, long time. And in fact, it still bears his name,
Yeah,
although
yeah.
he's dead and somebody else owns it now.
Yeah.
So the Treas name is a very famous name. Do you know much about your grandparents on either side? Do you?
Well, yeah, I knew them. They are where that church is. His father settled over there just a little ways out between there and the highway. We called it Uncle Bill Treas' place, but that was where his father settled. And I don't know now whether they built that for him or who's over there. Then the list east of the cemetery, just inside over there, where that airplane fell. You probably know right where that was.
Mm-hmm. I've heard a lot of stories that I believe they said it was the first automobile. Maybe it might not have been. My memory may be wrong there. But one of the first cars was owned by a fellow named Treas.
Yeah,
Was that Cliff Treas's dad?
No, that was my granddad's brother, Ban Treas, Uncle Ban, my dad's uncle. And he bought a car in 1915. It was a 1915 model. And somebody asked him.
It was a Ford with a brass radiator, wasn't it?
Yeah. You had to get out in front of it to crank it and all like that. Somebody asked him they was building a courthouse out there, I believe, when it burned, and asked him about the courthouse. And he said, well, he wouldn't give his car for that courthouse out there. And it was built in 1915, same model of the car.
Yeah, that's
He had the same tires on it when he died that come on it but one. The tar company gave him one tar. They gave him the whole set, but he had the rest of them wrapped, and they sold them at the sale there.
Well, that's an interesting story too.
Yeah, and he let them
He
put
didn't
one.
drive it much, did he?
About this time of year, well, he generally drive it along till Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving's come, he'd drive it in the shed, jack it up, set it on some trussels, let it sit there till the next summer when it got hot and dry.
I've heard that in the early days, a good many car buyers did just that.
Yeah.
I guess they thought water would ruin them.
Well, where he was back in there, where he lived there on Soldier Creek on the north side of it, why, they couldn't get in and out in the wintertime.
The roads were mud, weren't they?
Mud and uphill and down just through the woods. There wasn't no road to it. It was just, he'd just go out through the woods anywhere he could get a path. He got ruts, he'd move over to another place in the woods and go out. That's the kind of roads I recollect going when I first got to go and see Uncle Ben named Laurie.
Recently, I read a story about the first car trip across the United States, and the fellow that did it just took a chance, I guess, and there wasn't a road from New York to San Francisco. He just drove out through the country.
That's right.
When you got across the Mississippi, it was open land. They had no stock law. There were no fences. And you just had your compass and kept heading toward the setting sun every day.
Well, I can recollect right about the time that stock law come around. Back then, down there where we lived, they just, the land that they farmed was all they had fence. The other stock and all just run outside, and roads as you just all through the woods and fields back through there.
Mhm. And you can remember that in your own lifetime?
Yes, sir.
Well,
That's back before 19 and 18.
mhm. Well, Marshall County has changed some since then.
It's changed a lot.
Well, you went to school at what, Brewers?
Brewers. I started in 1928.
Do you remember any of the teachers you might have had?
Yes, sir. Mr. Goheen, Lester.
Lester Goheen.
Yeah.
I remember that man.
And,
He taught agriculture.
yeah, he taught agriculture for I don't know how many years, but the first one I went to was Mr. Tommy Chester's son-in-law, Herbert Humes, I believe it was, Hubert Humes. And the schoolhouse burned in 1927, and he was up there building it. My dad, he working there on the schoolhouse. He'd hitch up to the wagon and carry me up there to sit and watch them build a schoolhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And Mr. Goheen, it wasn't Goheen, it was, I told you Humes.
Humes.
Hubert Humes, he's the one that wanted Dad to send me to school after he got the school built. And let me see, I never was in the schoolhouse, and Uncle Benny, he got his boys to bring me up there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way I got started going to school. They brought me up there, and I wanted to go some more.
Good. Well, now I believe you told me you had infantile paralysis.
Yeah, that's what the doctors call it. Dr. Bean was our doctor, and he calls two doctors out of Benton. I believe one of them was a Dr. Washburn, and I don't know, I've heard Mom and Dad tell, but I don't know who the other one was. And they come down there and they diagnosed it the same. And well, at first they just sent off to Louisville. They come and after they all three met there.
Yeah.
And sent up there and he come back. It was infantile paralysis.
Mm-hmm. Now, how old were you when they discovered you had this?
That was in 1916. Whenever I had that, I didn't remember no more for about 3 years. 2 or 3 years in there. I couldn't even move, they said, and well, I know I couldn't I got where I could talk and all, and about a year or two after that, and I couldn't move a hand, foot, or body or nothing. I just
Of course, back then, they didn't know an awful lot about that disease.
No.
There wasn't any treatment that they knew positively that.
No.
In fact, once your nerve system was damaged, then it couldn't be undone, I guess, even in 1985, could it?
I don't know. I don't guess it could be all undone. Now, they've got a help now that this therapy and more exercise, they found out that will put more of it back into shape where it will work. It wasn't back in them days. But whenever Dr. Bean decided his medicine had gone as far as it would do any good, why, he wanted me carried to Louisville. They carried me up there, and of course I couldn't move myself then. And whenever Dad and Mother and he carried me up there, why, they told them that there wasn't nothing they could do, that I was in too bad a shape all over.
Mm-hmm.
And just bring me back home and let me live as long as I could. Said I probably wouldn't live 6 months or something like that. And
But you fooled them.
I fooled them.
Yeah.
I'm here now talking on this
Yeah.
at 72 years old.
So we're glad you did.
Yeah.
But it took many years of hard work and spending of millions and millions and millions of dollars in order to finally, well, they didn't find a cure for it. They found a vaccine that would prevent it.
Prevent it, that's right.
But it's a different world now. I can remember when I was young, every summer, the whole country would be terrified.
Well, there's 5 of us that had it around in the neighborhood out there around the Brewers community that had it at the same time. But was just two of us is real bad. Me, myself, and Murdy Smith. I guess you've heard of him.
Mm-hmm.
You heard that, Murdy. See, Ernie Smith's sister, she died with that polio or infantile paralysis after being operated on several different times.
Of course, one of the most famous cases of it was President Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Yeah.
He took it, of course, as a young man. I think he was about maybe 24 or 5 years old. And they had gone to their summer home. They were a very wealthy family. They'd gone up to Campobello on, I guess that's off the coast of Maine. And he came down with it then. And of course, they were never able to cure him, but one thing they did, his having it focused attention on it enough that they started the March of Dimes, they called it.
Yeah.
On his birthday was what, January 30th, I believe.
January the 3rd.
And everybody would give a dime, and that paid for the research over the years. And eventually, they did come out with a vaccine that would prevent it. Well, that's confined you then.
Well, it did in a way, but there for about 3 or 4 years it confined me a whole lot. Then he put me to go into a chiropractor, and I went to a chiropractor at Mayfield for about a year and a half, and I got where I could sit up, I could move my hand, feed myself, and crawl around. Got where I could wait on myself, and then I got where I could do some work, such as stripping tobacco for folks and myself, or my father, I mean.
Yes.
Boat log ground,
Well,
plow corn as cultivator.
Say that, you don't know what you can do till you have to do it, do you?
That's right. I lived pretty normal life. Yeah. And then after I got to go in school, of course, my sister married. We went to Buggy all the time, and so I told my dad. He said, "You out of luck now. You'll have to quit school." Says I can't go every day and carry you. And I told him if he'd get me a car, I believe I could drive it. And he says, "Oh, you don't think you can drive it?" He says, "I can't. I never did drive one." Says I can't drive it. I says, "I believe I can." Well, he says, "If you can, I'll get you one." So he bought me a 28 Chevrolet.
Yeah.
I got out there and sat out there in the car for about a week and fooled around, fixed up me some sticks and things like I wanted. And I got where I drive it up and back it up and drive it and back it up. Just kept it doing that.
Determination is a large part of the battle, isn't it?
That's right. And then he said, "Well," says, "I see you've got it, now you plan." Says, "I'll go and take it now." He learned how to drive then. Says, "I'll go take it, go to Brian Foote and get him fix it." He told us he would, if I studied it out. Got down there and he looked at it, he says he's got it studied out and it'll work and he can drive it. But says, I'm just afraid to fix it, afraid he'll have a wreck and hurt himself. So he wouldn't do it, and he wouldn't fix it. We come back home, laying there one day it's raining, laying on the floor, Dad was, and I was out there fooling around, I don't know what. He come out the door and wanted to know if I wanted to go have that car fixed. That he'd thought of a place to have fixed. Go to Mr. Jim Kenny's. And went out there, and he sat down in the car and took my sticks and everything, and let me talk to him and ask me questions. And why, he says there ain't a thing. He doesn't know how he can drive.
Yeah.
And so he just
Mr. Kenny was a pretty good mechanic, wasn't he?
He sure was. Mr. Jim Kenny was a good mechanic. They said he made the first steam engine up there at Brewer's, there right where Dr. Bain lived. He lived at the foot of the hill there, and from him.
And they pulled a wheat thresher with it or something, I believe.
Yeah.
Well, that's an amazing story. And of course, he later became. I remember him when he was Ford dealer.
Yeah. Yeah. He thrashed wheat.
In fact,
and
I think he and Kurt Phillips were partners for a while.
Yeah, they was for a while.
Then one became a Ford dealer and one became a Chevrolet dealer.
That's right.
Well, there are enough people bought both kinds that they both did well.
They did well, yes, sir.
Well, that's good. Now, it's amazing to me that you had the ingenuity and the perseverance and so on to pursue that till you believed you could do it, and you did.
Yeah. Then I got my driver's license, come around for a driver's license a year later, and I passed the test just like everybody else did, and got my driver's license. I drove it till I come down here, and my car's up there at my sister's now, at Brewers, where I used to live. Mama sold her that place to have enough money for her to stay here. That's how come to come here. After she broke her hip, and they'd put a new ball in it, and they couldn't. She broke it then again, and it just busted to all pieces. She just had to lay in the bed, take bed rest, and so I couldn't manage her by myself. I stayed with her, me and her staying there at home after Dad passed away.
Well, tell us a little about Brewers as you can remember it in very early days. There was a physician there, Dr. Bean.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Dr. Bean.
And there was, I assume, a couple of grocery stores, maybe? Or?
Yes, sir. Mr. Jimmy Chester and Mr. Well, I don't know what I'll think of his Atlish. Mr. John Atlish.
Now, I remember an Atlish boy that played basketball. Homer. Yeah.
That there, John Atlish was Mr. Will Atlish's brother. Will and John was brother.
You know, Leon Riley told me once that he one time owned a store.
Oh yeah?
That was later, I guess.
Well, he bought the Chesters out whenever Mr. Chester died and Guy sold out. He bought it out. And then he took a notion, I don't know, him and Guy or something other got in trouble, and anyhow, he built down there, bought a piece of land from Toe Baker, and he built down there. That's the only man that he said it ever made him bring a post office back.
You know, he told me that story on a oral history program, and that is one of the funniest things I ever heard.
He said he moved the post office, and Guy Chester made him bring it back.
Yeah.
He'd laugh and tell us about it.
He laughs about it now. He said that he got this call from Washington. The Postmaster General's office said, I understand you moved the U.S. Post Office without permission.
Yeah.
And then he laughed and told me, he said it was just a little, you could fold it up like a suitcase.
Yeah.
And like many of those little contract offices, they just got some grocery store owner to keep it.
Mr. J.C. Chester kept it in Guy all the time.
So he said, yes, sir, I'll take it right back. So he said, I just snapped it to, folded it up, walked up there and set it down. Oh, I tell you, that Leon's a good one. One of the funny stories that he told, too, was about, he said his dad was a Baptist preacher.
Yeah.
And that Robbie, his wife, told him one day, said he'd been somewhere and gotten some beer. And his dad didn't want him to drink, of course. And he said he didn't drink much, but he'd gotten that. And as before they had electricity, and so he'd let it down in the well in a gunny sack to keep it cold. They'd draw it up when they wanted a bottle. So he said he got busy that morning, and he kind of forgot about his dad coming over, and Robbie said, you better get that beer out of here. Said, your dad's coming, remember? So he dropped everything and took it off, but his dad rolled up just a little after he'd gotten out. And he had a little girl,
Yeah.
daughter maybe 5 or 6 years old. So the grandfather came up and kissed her and says, "Where's Leon?" She said, "Why, he's putting the beer down in the well."
And Leon told me that she run out and met him, said, "Granddad, you better hurry and get in the house if you want any beer. Daddy's putting it, hiding it from me."
Oh, well, maybe
That's what he
that
told
makes a better story than the other one.
That's what Leon told me. It happened. He said it.
Yeah.
It
Well,
sure
were you around when Brewers High School opened? Was that about 28 when they opened Brewers High School?
No, it is open before that. My sister went before that a good while. I don't know. His about 20. Let's see.
Maybe 26 or somewhere along there.
No, it's on back before that. I can't get just exactly when it was. Here's her first schools that she went to, and she was in the fourth or fifth grade, I guess it was, when I started school. For she was ahead of me. They had given me an IQ test, the superintendent and the principal and all, and she was in the 5th or 6th grade, and they gave me into 3rd grade starting.
Well, I remember when Brewers won the state tournament fine. That was
Yeah.
1948.
Yeah, I was 1948.
And McCoy Terry, the famous redhead.
The first school it was a frame school. That was white school. Meta Mathis was the principal for then. I recollect that.
I went to a Rotary meeting earlier in the year at Elizabethtown, and there were delegates from around the state. We were planning the annual scholarships that Rotary clubs give to young college students. And a man walked in, and his wife. His wife looked at me and said, "Are you Ray Mofield?" And it turned out it was McCoy Terry's widow.
Yeah.
She had remarried.
Yeah.
And,
Well, I didn't know she'd remarried,
and
but I knew
lived-
her well, saw a lot of them.
Very fine lady.
Sure.
Well, let's get on. Was there a blacksmith shop in
Yes,
Brewers?
yeah. There's blacksmith shop, and there's garage, and
Grist mill?
grist mill, yeah.
So it was a...
Pretty business place
Yeah.
for a while.
I read an article years ago, it seems to me, that said that the original name was Brewer's Mill. I don't know whether that's right or not, but that a man started a grist mill there way in the early days, and that they called it Brewer's Mill.
It might have been. I don't remember that.
Yeah.
But my mother and dad tell me that the Brewers first time on the start was down there where well, I'm getting where I can't think of folks' name, and Kratos Crest lived. Right there was where Mr. Chester run a store till he come up there and built up there.
Yeah.
They tell me that's where it was, where Brewers was first, and he had the post office down there.
When did you get your first radio? You remember that?
No,
A radio, I imagine, would have been a lot of company to you.
yeah, but I never got one till, it's in right close to the 40s. I don't want to say 38 or something along there. It's in the 40s. Sister,
Our first one was 39.
well,
so.
39 or 40, something right along
We
there.
were getting wealthy then.
Yeah, well, my sister's working with Annie Mae, and Howard and them at Paducah. They was working down there, and she was babysitting for them while they was working in the store. She bought the radio for me. She said I was staying home with my dad and mother, so she's going to get it for me, and that's how I got that.
Well, you know, 30 minutes goes by in a hurry, and we only
Yeah.
got about one left. Do you have any particular story that you'd like to, some philosophy you want to express, or life's most embarrassing moment, or anything that you'd like to put on before we have to leave?
No, I don't think of anything just right offhand right now. I've enjoyed talking with you. And I could sit and talk for a long time that way, and you ask questions long out of way.
But you can't tell us a Leon Riley beer story.
No, yeah, I did that, didn't I? Leon Riley may want to pull the rest of my hair out. He rubbed my head. I ain't got no hair to pull.
He may cut my throat too.
Me and him about the same age. We right close to the same age, and I've known Leon a long, long time while he is in Kirksey.
Well, thank you very much. We've been at Calvert City Convalescent Center, and we're talking with J.C. Treas. And it's been a real pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
This is Ray Mofield, and we return you now to our studio in Benton. Well,
Thank you very much.